Hip-hop often thrives off the competitive spirit of wanting to be the best. Sometimes we look up to those that have been in the game longer and show our admiration in various ways. What is seen as a sign of respect to one can be the opposite to the next man, however, and misunderstandings are in abundance when pride and reputation to uphold take priority. As an up-and-coming rapper, one wrong move can have a hip-hop great on your tail. Do you back down or take on the challenge? This is LL Cool J versus Canibus. LL Cool J is short for Ladies Love Cool James, by the way, if there's anyone that listens to rap and still doesn't know that fact. For all the youth out there, this guy made hip-hop love songs a pretty big thing before artists like Drake took the mantle. LL is no stranger to beef and diss tracks, but after years of putting out R&B sounding hits, the last thing some people would expect, I imagine, is a rap beef to spark again. Canibus, on the other hand, was new to the rap scene, rapping since the early 90s, and made his debut on the remix of Music Makes Me High by the Lost Boys in 1996. The beef between these two started in late 1997 when LL was working on his 7th studio album, Phenomenon. The second single, 4321, was the posse cut of the album with a star-studded lineup of Method Man, Redman, DMX, and Canibus. The single version of the song also included Master P. LL took offense to a line that Canibus had in his verse. The line being, "L, is that a mic on your arm? Let me borrow that," which was referencing the microphone tattoo that LL Cool J has on his arm. Canibus saw this line as respect, but as I said, these things are up to interpretation. I don't see it as a diss. I think LL Cool J maybe let his pride get to him. If Canibus meant it as a diss, it would be quite bold as a newcomer to diss someone considered one of the greatest in the genre on his own song, and it could potentially be a career-damaging move. Even Redman, who was on the track, said in an interview that he doesn't believe Canibus was dissing LL Cool J, and Method Man, when asked about it, said that LL Cool J was basically overreacting to this line. In response, LL Cool J did something that I never heard of happening in hip-hop before this. In his verse on the song, he came back at Canibus, especially with the lines, "The symbol on my arm is off limits to challenges. You hold the rusty sword, I swing the Excalibur." And the rest of the verse can be seen as a diss to Canibus as well. According to Canibus, LL asked him to change his verse and that he would do the same in return, so Canibus changed his, but LL left his verse as it was. I think it's crazy to diss someone on a song that you also have them feature on, but I guess it seemed like a good idea at the time. The song is noted as being the first prominent single that artist DMX would be on just months before his classic debut studio album release, It's Dark and Hell is Hot. For a song to have such iconic hip-hop artists, I'm sure everyone has their favorite verse from it. My personal favorite is Canibus' original verse, which wound up getting leaked and let listeners in on who and what exactly LL Cool J was responding to on his verse. Canibus was also left out of the original video for the song and only put on the remix version that included Master P as well. This more than likely will only make the situation more intense and publicized. LL's album Phenomenon released in October 1997, while the 4321 single released in December the same year. Also at this time, Canibus would be working on his debut studio album, Can I Bus, which of course is a play on his stage name, spelled the same but pronounced differently. Apparently, LL and Canibus spoke on the phone sometime after the song was released and tried to reconcile things. LL explained to him that very few people knew that Canibus is the one he was dissing on the song and wanted Canibus to wait for a while until he had the time to record a song with him as a way of squashing the beef. Canibus clearly wasn't fond of this response, as not long afterwards, in March 1998, we would see the release of verbal shots fired back at LL Cool J. Canibus responded to the 4321 verse on Second Round KO, which would be a scathing diss track to LL Cool J, produced by Wyclef Jean and featuring Mike Tyson on the song doing the intro and the outro. This song would go on to be one of the most notable diss tracks of rap beef history and also be Canibus' first and only top 40 single on the Billboard Top 100. Probably one of the few examples around that time of a new rapper taking shots at a well-established artist and getting an actual response from it. Sometimes the bigger artist has a tendency to just ignore it, which if LL did, then this beef would stop right here. It's one of my favorite diss tracks of all time and my favorite diss track of the beef in general. Everything from the production to the Mike Tyson feature and the title even being a reference to knocking out LL Cool J after that first round being 4321 was well executed. The song is full of lyrical attacks to LL Cool J's character and rap skills. This is one of the first diss songs that I can remember being able to recite the lyrics of, so it's always been a very memorable one for me. It's another standout diss track of the 90s, which had a slew of tracks flying from one artist to another, both well-established and up-and-coming. One of the standout lines to me is when he said 99% of your fans were high heels. A hard jab at the fact that LL Cool J has garnered a lot of female fans from his R&B sounding love songs rather than hardcore hip-hop. The whole song is full of lines going at his integrity, rhyme skills, and character, and he hit it hard at that. Later on, in 1998, LL Cool J responded with The Ripper Strikes Back, addressing multiple things Canibus said on Second Round KO. For example, remember when Canibus said 99% of your fans wear high heels? Well, in response, LL Cool J said 99% of your fans don't exist. Logically, it doesn't really make sense, but when you put that aside and look at what he was trying to say, which is that Canibus barely has any fans at all compared to his own fan base, then yeah, I get it. That was a good one, but it probably could have just been phrased better. LL also takes shots at Wyclef Jean and Mike Tyson for their roles in the song, calling Wyclef a fake Bob Marley and mentioning Mike Tyson's rape conviction. I think the track is pretty good. It's a direct response to Canibus' lines on Second Round KO, and that's really what it is for the most part. A response and not much new. LL definitely showed that he was ready for rap beef again, however, even by the name of the song. It's a reference to one of his previous diss tracks, which was aimed at Kool Moe Dee back in 1988. In that beef, the roles were reversed, however. Kool Moe Dee was the more established artist, with LL Cool J being the new guy. The production sounds triumphant, old school, and typical of what you might expect from LL Cool J. This song, however, brought Wyclef Jean into the beef further than just producing and managing Canibus. Later that same year, Wyclef would release the song What's Clef in retaliation to the fake Bob Marley line and other mentions of Wyclef in The Ripper Strikes Back. Wyclef released the song What's Clef as a direct diss to LL Cool J, taking shots at everything from his appearance to his sexuality to his rap skills. It's a track rife with humor and some truth to it as well. He goes on to mention in the song that Canibus, the newcomer, outshined him on 4321, which is an opinion that many listeners do have regarding that song. It's a decent track and something I wouldn't expect to hear from Wyclef. Growing up, I knew him to make songs with the Fugees and some solo radio hits as well, but never saw him as the type to really be involved in a rap beef, honestly. He even had a feature from model Naomi Campbell on the track as well, telling LL Cool J to give up rapping because he sucks, so on and so forth. When asked about it years later in an interview, Wyclef said that he added a woman in there to basically attack LL's mainly female fan audience persona that he had and to show that not all women like him just because he's well built and make love songs, basically. Later on in 1998, LL Cool J responded to Wyclef Jean's What's Clef track with the song Rasta and Pasta. Similar to The Ripper Strikes Back, LL mainly responds to the various lines that Wyclef directed at him, like the licking of the lips, criticizing his appearance, and having Naomi Campbell on the song. LL once again proved that he's no stranger to rap beef and that he can more than hold his own in the ring. Not the best track in the beef, but I definitely acknowledge the fact that he shot back quickly and directly. Although I believe him dissing Wyclef in the first place wasn't even needed when his beef was with Canibus. Sometimes other artists around the main person can be drawn into the beef through association. Now, alongside Second Round KO, Canibus' debut studio album also included the song Buckingham Palace, which again took some shots at LL Cool J with mentions of snatching the mic from someone's arm, that obviously being LL given their beef starting over the microphone tattoo. Then, sometime in 1999, New York DJ Tony Touch would release the mixtape Power Cypher 3, the grand finale, featuring freestyles from a variety of artists, including Wyclef Jean, who dedicated a line or two once again to diss LL Cool J, but outside of that, the beef would be relatively quiet until in 2000 when all three artists dropped their next studio albums. In February 2000, Big Pun passed, and in an interview with Hip Hop DX, Wyclef Jean stated that he squashed his beef with LL Cool J at the funeral, which would then see him removed from this beef. However, a few months later in July, Canibus' second album, 2000 BC, Before Canibus, was released, and on the title track, Canibus took shots at not only LL Cool J, but Wyclef Jean as well, in which he blames Wyclef for the reason his first album did not do as well as expected. This would turn the beef now to Canibus versus LL Cool J and Wyclef Jean as well. Shortly afterwards, in August 2000, Wyclef released his second solo studio album, The Eclectic 2, sides to a book, which featured the song However You Want It, which is a response to Canibus mentioning Wyclef as the reason his first album didn't do all that great. Overall, it's a pretty good sounding track and a decent shot back to Canibus. Wyclef uses references to Jesus and his disciples as an analogy for Canibus not being loyal by putting the blame on him, and instead pushes the blame back onto Canibus and his high expectations for the album. Now obviously, I don't know how their whole recording process went, but unless Wyclef was forcing Canibus to rap over the beats he picked, I don't see why the blame should be pushed to Wyclef. What I've heard from that album sounded good lyrically, but I do agree that some of the beats didn't fit his rap style. Canibus' second album didn't have any involvement from Wyclef on the production, however. Understandably so, given their situation. A few weeks later, in September, was the release of LL Cool J's 8th studio album, GOAT, Greatest of All Time, or GOAT, which featured the track Back Where I Belong. The song features Ja Rule on the chorus and has LL Cool J taking shots at Canibus again, including claiming that he's destroyed his career, calling him a one-hit wonder, and calling his albums garbage. Personally, I'm not a fan of the track really, from the chorus to the beat. It just doesn't hit hard enough for a diss track, or contain enough disses based on facts. That would be the last track going back and forth between the two until the next year in 2001, Canibus released the track Rip the Jacker as a response to the Ripper Strikes Back track that LL aimed at him and Wyclef. On this song, Canibus raps over the beat for I'm Bad, the first single from LL Cool J's second album, Bigger and Deffer. Like Second Round KO, Canibus attacks LL Cool J's rapping and acting skills as well as his sexuality and claims that he has ghostwriters. Ironically enough, this ghostwriting accusation would be part of the reason that Canibus has beef with Eminem, as he suspected that Eminem had ghostwritten one of LL Cool J's diss tracks towards Canibus. Rip the Jacker would be the last officially released track from the beef, and like Second Round KO, I find it to be a pretty scathing diss track and probably one of my favorites of the overall group. Afterwards, the beef would go relatively quiet for some years, until in 2014, LL Cool J brought Canibus out on stage during a live show and officially squashed the beef by performing their verses from 4, 3, 2, 1, which somewhat feels like rubbing salt in old wounds, honestly, since that is the song that started the whole beef. They could have rapped verses from other songs besides their diss tracks or something. Some even saw it as LL trying to further diss Canibus, as after they performed their verses, he made the statement, "Your career is starting again," directed towards Canibus on stage, which I can see as being a shot. Considering all the statements he made about ending Canibus' career in the past, it can be seen as him trying to say, well, I ended your career, and I can restart it if I like. Personally, I don't see it being very tactful at all. Regardless, that would be the end of LL Cool J and Canibus' beef. However, there was one more song related to this overall beef, and that was released in August of 2018, which featured Canibus and Wyclef, former collaborators turned rivals. The song Letter to Canibus features both artists going back and forth and plays more like a conversation between the two reminiscing on things. If the beef wasn't considered squashed before then, it definitely would be at this point. Now, the main portion of this video is LL Cool J versus Canibus, but of course, considering how Wyclef played a pretty big part of it, I decided to roll it all into one video rather than make two separate ones. As far as the beef goes, this is one where things stayed on wax and didn't escalate further into physical altercations, and no one was hurt or killed, fortunately. I only knew of some of the basics about this beef before going deeper into researching, and that's one of the main ideas behind this series, to shed more light on various hip-hop beefs and have a timeline of sorts. This beef ultimately resulted in one of my favorite diss tracks ever being made, which is great, but many feel that Canibus' career never reached the extent that it could have because of it, which is truly something up to your interpretation. It is true that LL Cool J was a big artist and had a label backing him in Def Jam, compared to Canibus, who was a relatively new artist and didn't have that big record label behind him. So it is an understandable assumption. Music-wise, I give this battle to Canibus over LL, but overall career-wise, as far as things go like sales, fame, and awards are concerned, that undoubtedly goes to LL Cool J. He's gone gold and platinum on multiple albums and has been nominated and won multiple Grammy Awards, NAACP Awards, and plenty of other awards. Just you name it, he's probably been nominated at some point it's LL Cool J. He's one of the most highly decorated artists in this genre, and you can't take that away from him. However, like I said, lyrically, I don't feel like he beat Canibus in the slightest bit. Regardless, I am glad that this is a beef that did not result in violence, bloodshed, and someone losing their life. Both artists, as well as Wyclef of course, went on to release multiple albums of varying degrees of commercial and critical success, and LL Cool J would continue his acting career, starring in multiple movies, as well as the series NCIS Los Angeles. While Canibus would continue to release music both solo and in groups such as the Four Horsemen, which included other rap greats like Corrupt, Razkaz, and Killah Priest. I think it would be kind of cool to see LL and Canibus release some music together though. They're both pretty good artists, different styles and whatnot, but I'm sure they can make it work. I mean, LL did have them on 4, 3, 2, 1 anyways, right? What are your thoughts on this beef? Did you learn something new? Head to the comment section below and let me know. Feel free to recommend any other beefs you'd like me to cover as well, and as always, make sure to subscribe to the channel and follow on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, everywhere else, and stay tuned for more.